You drill a hole. Your fish finder screen lights up, showing a sudden drop. 10 feet, 20 feet, then 30. You found it. The deepest hole in the area, the legendary wintering spot. You get excited, rig up your best jig, and drop it down. And then, you wait, and wait, and nothing happens. Sound familiar? You're not alone. Today, we're going to expose why that perfect deep hole is probably the worst place you could be fishing. I'm going to show you the critical difference between a random hole and a real bream sanctuary. By the end of this video, you'll understand why you've been blanking, and you'll know exactly what to look for next time. So, let me ask you, do you think depth is the most important factor for finding winter bream? Let's see if you still think so in about 10 minutes. For generations, the wisdom has been passed down from father to son, from one fishing buddy to another. Fish deep in the winter. It makes sense on the surface. Colder water is at the top, and fish are lethargic, so they must gather in the deepest, most stable water to wait out the cold. It's a simple, logical rule. And that's why 90% of anglers on any given frozen lake are clustered over the same one or two deep basins shown on the map. They're all following the same old playbook. But fish don't read playbooks. This obsession with depth is a massive oversimplification, and it's the very reason so many winter fishing trips end in frustration. We've been conditioned to look at a depth chart and see a target without ever asking the most important question: why would a fish want to be there? Let's start with the big myth, the myth of the giant empty bathtub. Imagine a perfectly round 30-foot deep hole in the middle of a 15-foot flat. It looks amazing on a map. Anglers flock to it. But often, these isolated, bowl-shaped depressions are biological deserts in the winter. Think of it like a cold, empty room with no furniture and no food. Sure, it's a place to exist, but there's no reason to stay. Fish, even lethargic winter fish, need more than just deep water. So what's the first problem with these perfect holes? Oxygen, or the lack of it. In a deep, stagnant basin with no water flow, decaying vegetation from the fall consumes huge amounts of dissolved oxygen at the bottom. The water might be deep and stable, but if the fish can't breathe, they aren't going to be there. You could be fishing in the most beautiful-looking spot on the lake, but it's completely lifeless just a few feet off the bottom. Now let's talk about food. A bream isn't going to sit in one spot for 4 months without eating. The bottom of many of these deep holes is often a soft, mucky silt. This kind of bottom doesn't support the insect larvae, bloodworms, and other invertebrates that bream feed on, so they've got no oxygen and no food. It's like setting up a deer stand in the middle of a paved parking lot. It might be a comfortable spot to sit, but you're not going to see any deer. This brings us to a crucial concept: structure. A true wintering hole is rarely just a hole. It's a complex piece of underwater geography. The most productive spots are almost always related to an old submerged river or creek channel. These channels aren't just depressions, they are highways. They have edges, bends, and intersections, just like a road system. These features are what concentrate fish. Picture this. You're looking at your map. You see a deep area. Don't just look at the depth. Look for contours that are close together, forming a distinct line. That's a channel edge. That's a drop-off. Bream don't just sit in the bottom of the channel. They relate to the edges. They might sit on the lip of the drop or just at the base of it. A simple bowl-shaped hole doesn't have these critical edges. Let's refine this idea further. It's not just the channel, it's the bends in the channel. An outside bend in a submerged river channel is a fish magnet. For years, the current has scoured out the bottom on that outside bend, making it slightly deeper and often creating a harder bottom. It also creates a current break. This is a 5-star hotel for winter bream. Depth, structure, a hard bottom for feeding, and a place to rest out of the current. Compare that to a simple man-made dugout or a natural sinkhole. It's just a pit. There are no defining features inside it. The fish have no reason to be on one side versus the other. They are just there. Or more likely, they aren't there at all. They're a quarter mile away, stacked up on a subtle little channel bend that most anglers completely overlook because it's 5 feet shallower than the big hole. Another key feature is submerged structure. Within the hole, is there an old stump field at the bottom, a rock pile, a submerged roadbed crossing the channel? Your electronics are key here. When you find a deep spot, don't just drill one hole in the middle. Drill a grid. Scan each hole. You might find that the entire basin is empty except for a 20 by 20 foot area around a single submerged tree. That tree is the entire reason the fish are there. Let's talk about transitions. The places where the bottom composition changes are vital. A spot where a soft, muddy bottom transitions to sand or gravel can be a goldmine. This is where different types of food sources are found. Bream will often patrol these transition lines. Your perfect deep hole might be 100% soft mud. There's no edge, no variety, no reason for fish to concentrate. Now, think about the approaches to the hole. A true wintering spot isn't an island. It's connected to shallower feeding flats. The bream don't just teleport into the deep water in November, they follow migration routes. Look for long tapering points or underwater ridges that lead directly into the deep basin. These are the highways the fish use, and they will often hold on key spots along these routes. Let's put this into a real-life scenario. You arrive at a new lake. You see a big 40-foot hole on the map. The temptation is to go right to the middle. Stop. Instead, start by drilling holes on the edge of the hole, where it drops from 20 to 25 feet. Then work your way around the perimeter. You are looking for that one special section, the one with the channel bend, or the one where a point runs into it. What about current? Even in a lake or reservoir, there is often a subtle, wind-driven or spring-fed current. This is huge. Fish will almost always position themselves on the downstream side of a piece of structure within the wintering hole to get out of the flow. If you find a rock pile in a basin, the fish won't be scattered all around it. They'll be packed in tight on one specific side. A simple hole with no structure offers no such protection. This is why you see old-timers succeeding. They're not fishing the big, obvious community hole. They're fishing a much smaller, less obvious spot. Maybe it's a small depression right where two creek channels meet. It's only 22 feet deep, while the main basin is 35, but it has all the right ingredients. It's the difference between a giant, empty warehouse and a small, fully stocked convenience store. So how do you confirm you're in the right place? The test drill. Once you've identified a promising area on your map, let's say an outside channel bend, don't just fish one hole. Drill a line of 5 holes right across the feature. Drop your transducer in each one. You're not just looking for fish, you're looking for bait fish. You're looking for the bottom to change from soft to hard on your flasher. You're confirming what the map is telling you. Let's talk about the flasher signal itself. In a barren hole with a soft bottom, you'll get a thick, mushy red line at the bottom. In a true wintering spot with a harder bottom composition, clay, gravel, sand, that bottom signal will be sharp and thin. This is a subtle clue, but it's one of the most important. A sharp bottom return means a better chance of finding food for the bream. Another thing to consider is proximity to greenweeds. Even in winter, the edges of deep living weed beds provide oxygen and shelter for bait fish. A deep hole located right next to a massive dying weed flat is a poor choice. But a deep hole that's adjacent to a healthy, deep weed line. That's a spot where bream can slide out of the deep water for a quick meal before retreating back to safety. Think about the neighborhood. Is your deep hole all alone, or is it part of a system? The best wintering areas are often a series of smaller holes and troughs connected by a defined channel, rather than one single giant basin. This gives the fish options. They can move between these spots depending on barometric pressure, fishing pressure, or food availability. Here's a hard truth. The easiest spot to find on the map is also the one that gets the most fishing pressure. Those big, obvious holes have been hammered since the first safe ice. The fish in those areas are either gone or they are incredibly wary. The real magic happens when you find the secondary, less obvious spots that everyone else drives right over on their way to the community hole. So, your fish finder is not just for seeing fish. It's a tool for investigating the environment. Use it to map the bottom. Use it to check for hardness. Use it to find those subtle pieces of structure, like a 2-foot rock pile at the base of a 30-foot drop. That tiny little feature can hold the entire school of bream in that basin. The hole itself is just the address. The structure is the actual house. To sum it up, stop chasing depth for depth's sake. Start thinking like a fish. Where is the food? Where is the safety? Where can I rest with minimal effort? The answer is almost never in the bottom of a simple, featureless bowl. It's on the edges, the bends, the points, and the structure that makes a deep spot a true home, not just a temporary empty basement. So, let's bring it all together. For years, we've been told to find the deepest water. We've been looking at our maps and sonars with a one-track mind. The big twist, the real aha moment, is realizing that depth is just one piece of the puzzle, and it's often the most misleading one. The game completely changes when you stop asking, where is it deepest? And start asking, where is the best habitat that also happens to be deep? The real wintering spot isn't the giant basin. It's the small, specific sweet spot on a submerged channel bend with a hard bottom and a nearby piece of cover. This simple shift in mindset will take you away from the crowds and put you directly over fish that haven't seen a lure all winter. Thank you so much for watching. If this changed the way you look at a lake map, hit that like button and subscribe for more content that cuts through the old, outdated fishing advice. Now, I want to hear from you. What's the most surprising feature you've ever found that held a giant school of winterfish? Let's share some knowledge in the comments below.